Thunder always sounds louder when your heart is already breaking. It cracked across the late summer sky just as Bennett realized he'd made a terrible mistake. The wind whipped through the half-assembled rows of folding chairs, sending white ribbons snapping like frightened birds. Dark clouds rolled over the small Ohio town park, swallowing the golden sunset that had looked so promising an hour ago. Parents were already pulling their children toward their cars. Vendors were covering equipment with plastic sheets. And in the center of it all stood Michael, 34, widowed, exhausted, gripping a microphone that suddenly felt heavier than the world. He had exactly 10 minutes before the storm hit. And if tonight failed, he wasn't sure how he'd explain it to his daughter. 6-year-old Lily Bennett sat beneath the park's old maple tree, clutching a handmade sign decorated in purple glitter. "Save our playground." Her pigtails bounced in the wind, and her two big glasses kept sliding down her nose. She didn't understand zoning laws or budget cuts or why the city council had voted to demolish the only accessible playground in town to make room for a high-end retail development. She just knew that if the playground disappeared, so would the one place she could play without pain. Lily had cerebral palsy. The adaptive swings and rubberized surface had been built after years of fundraising by families like theirs. It was the only park within 50 miles where she didn't feel different. When Michael's wife, Hannah, was alive, she'd led those fundraisers. After she died from an aggressive cancer 18 months ago, Michael had promised Lily one thing. "No matter what happens, I'll keep showing up." So when the demolition notice went up, he did the only thing he could. He organized a community fundraiser. He emptied his savings to rent the stage. He called every local business. He printed flyers after his night shifts driving for a delivery service. He barely slept for weeks. And now the sky was turning black. A sleek black SUV rolled up to the curb beside the park, drawing stares even in the chaos. It gleamed like it didn't belong in a town, where most trucks had rust around the wheel wells. The door opened. Out stepped Alexander Whitmore, tech investor, real estate mogul, the man whose development company had purchased the land. He was taller than Michael expected. Perfectly tailored suit, expensive watch catching the last light, the kind of man who seemed untouched by inconvenience. People whispered his name like it carried power. Because it did. Whitmore Development's plan to replace the playground with a boutique shopping complex and upscale apartments. The city council had approved it unanimously. Michael had emailed Alexander's office 6 times. He'd never received a response. Until tonight. Alexander approached the stage just as the first heavy drops of rain began to fall. Michael stepped down to meet him, heart pounding. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, trying to steady his voice. "Thank you for coming." Alexander glanced at the sparse crowd, the folding tables, the donation jar holding mostly small bills. "You're the single dad," he said, not unkindly, but not warmly either. "Yes, sir." "And this is your big plan?" Alexander's gaze swept the darkening sky. "An outdoor fundraiser in a thunderstorm?" A few nearby parents shifted uncomfortably. Michael swallowed. "We checked the forecast. It was clear this morning." Thunder rolled again, louder this time. Alexander gave a short, incredulous laugh. "Start it and I'll marry you." The words hung in the air. Several people gasped. Michael blinked. "Excuse me? If you can actually get this thing going, music, speeches, donations. In the middle of this mess," Alexander said, gesturing to the storm. "I'll personally match whatever you raise, and if it somehow saves this playground." He smirked faintly. "Maybe I'll marry you for the miracle." A couple of his assistants chuckled nervously. It was meant as a joke, a billionaire's casual mockery, but Lily had heard it. She struggled to her feet beneath the maple tree and called out in her small, clear voice, "Daddy, you don't have to marry him. Just save my swings." The crowd went silent. Something flickered across Alexander's face. Surprise? Maybe, but it vanished quickly. Rain began falling harder. Michael could have packed up. No one would have blamed him. The weather alone was reason enough to cancel. But Lily was watching. And every parent in that park was watching. He climbed back onto the stage, water soaking through his shirt in seconds. He adjusted the microphone, which squealed in protest. "Thank you for coming," he began, voice trembling but loud. "I know the weather isn't ideal, but neither is losing the only place where our kids feel normal." Lightning split the sky. followed instantly by a crack of thunder so loud it rattled the metal stage. A few people ran for their cars. Michael kept talking. He spoke about Hannah, about the years of bake sales and car washes, about watching Lily take her first independent steps on that rubber surface because she wasn't afraid of falling. This playground, he said, rain streaming down his face, isn't just equipment. It's dignity. It's community. It's hope. The microphone cut out. For one horrifying second, there was only the sound of pounding rain. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, parents moved closer instead of farther away. A local high school student grabbed a portable speaker from his car. Someone else brought out a generator. Two teenagers held a tarp above the donation table. And Lily, small, determined Lily, began singing. Her voice wavered at first, thin against the storm. But it grew steadier. It was a simple song her mother used to sing while washing dishes. A song about standing tall when the wind tries to knock you down. People stopped running. They turned back. Phones came out, not to record the storm, but to stream the moment live. Within minutes, comments began pouring in online, shares, hearts, messages from neighboring towns. Alexander Whitmore stood at the edge of the park, rain dotting his pristine suit, watching a little girl with braces on her legs sing under a tree like she owned the sky. His assistant leaned toward him. "Sir, this is going viral." He didn't respond. On stage, Michael lifted the dead microphone aside and shouted without amplification. "If you can give $5, give 5. If you can give 50, give 50. If you can't give money, give your voice. Call the council. Share this live. Don't let them erase us quietly." The donation jar filled faster. Then a local business owner stepped forward. "I'll pledge 2,000. Another voice followed. 5,000. A retired teacher raised her hand. "I can't give much, but I'll volunteer every weekend." The storm raged, but no one left. Alexander's jaw tightened. He'd built his empire by calculating risk, by following profit margins, by treating land as numbers on a spreadsheet. But this wasn't numbers. This was messy, emotional, inconvenient, human. Lily finished her song just as another thunderclap echoed overhead. The live stream counter ticked upward. 10,000 viewers. 20,000. 30. A national parenting blog shared the video. Donations began arriving digitally. $10 from Texas. 20 from California. 1,000 from an anonymous donor in New York. Michael's phone buzzed relentlessly in his pocket. Alexander finally stepped forward. He climbed onto the stage beside Michael, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. The crowd quieted. "You said you'd match what we raise," Michael said softly, meeting his eyes. Alexander looked out at the soaked, stubborn crowd, then at Lily, then at the donation total displayed on someone's phone. $187,000 and climbing. His voice, when he spoke, was different. "Whitmore Developments," he announced, "will not be demolishing this playground." Gasps rippled outward. "And I will personally fund a full renovation, expanded accessibility, new equipment, covered seating, in memory of Hannah Bennett." Michael's knees nearly buckled. The crowd erupted, but Alexander wasn't finished. He turned to Michael, extending his hand. "I was wrong," he said plainly. "I saw land value. You saw human value. That's the better investment." Michael shook his hand, stunned. "And as for the marriage proposal," Alexander added, a faint smile breaking through, "I think you've proven you're already committed to something far more important." Laughter, warm and relieved, washed through the park. The storm began to ease as quickly as it had arrived. Rain softened to a mist. Clouds drifted apart, revealing a streak of fading sunset. Lily hobbled toward the stage, and Alexander knelt to her level without hesitation, heedless of the mud. "Are you going to save my swings?" she asked. "Yes," he said quietly. "And add a few more." She studied him for a moment, then threw her arms around his neck. For a billionaire accustomed to boardrooms and private jets, it was probably the most unfiltered embrace he'd ever received. And it changed him. In the months that followed, the story traveled far beyond Ohio. News outlets picked it up. Donations continued pouring in. The renovated playground reopened that spring, larger and more inclusive than anyone had imagined. A plaque near the entrance read, "Built by a community that refused to disappear." Alexander attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, not as a developer, but as a donor who had quietly established a foundation for accessible parks nationwide. He never joked again about marrying strangers in storms. Michael still drove delivery shifts at night, but he also became an advocate for inclusive spaces, speaking at city meetings across the state. And Lily? She took her first unassisted steps across the new playground, surface on opening day. Her father's hands hovering close but not touching. Thunder still rumbled occasionally in Ohio skies. But now when it did, Michael didn't hear mockery. He heard a reminder. Sometimes the loudest storms clear the way for the brightest kind of change. And sometimes, all it takes to move a billionaire and a nation is one single dad who refuses to pack up when the rain begins.